In this episode, I have a conversation with one of my clients, Angela. She's a teacher and a mom of two preteen kids. Maybe one of them's already a teen by now. And she fills lots of other roles. We came up with this idea of having a podcast chat for a couple of reasons. Recently, we both realized that Angela has been seeing me for depth psychology coaching for more than 4 years. I sometimes call her Junior Depth Psychologist because she's getting so good at exploring her dreams and finding the metaphor in her waking life. The other reason I wanted to have this chat is because Angela's journey perfectly captures CG Jung's theory of individuation. He defines individuation as consciously coming into deeper relationship with your unconscious. Often, I would say in most cases, it takes something dramatic to force us to face the truth of a situation, to accept the responsibility for exploring how we got where we find ourselves now. The dreaded midlife crisis isn't so much about age as it is about this moment, a moment that's a pivot point. Some accept the invitation to do the hard work, and others put it off as long as possible, distracting themselves with things that bring immediate relief, like easy romances, sex, substances like alcohol, even healthy activities that become obsessions like running marathons or pursuing an ideology that feels good but turns bad. Anyway, Angela's a great story with an interesting arc of ups and downs and realizations and aha moments and consciousness of patterns that helps her see she has options and choices that she didn't realize she had before. So, anyway, welcome, Angela.
Thank you.
How is your summer going? How are you? What's up with the kids and your blended family?
Summer's been great. It's been very eventful. Lots of things going on, traveling, sports. We had a wedding. Lots of things happening this summer. So it's going like every summer fast, but this summer is different than any other summer. Um, and I mean, I'm sure we'll touch on that as to why, but it's been great. So we're halfway through.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So
part of you is like, yeah. And you're from the Midwest where I'm from too. And so summer's really short. We pack a lot into it. And around, I don't know, a couple weeks before back to school, we're like, I kind of am looking forward to back to school and fall coming. But at the same time, they were like, oh, shoot, that happened so fast.
yeah, like it's totally nice to be at the gym on a Wednesday at 11, right?
Yeah.
Or
Mhm.
having this chat with you on a Friday afternoon when you don't get to do that during, school time.
Yeah.
So it's really nice.
Okay, good. Great.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, let's go to the beginning. And you can just share anything you want about way back then. What brought you to my workshop? That was almost 5 years ago, I think. And I think you came to like 2 or 3 different workshops. And I do remember some drawings happening and they were striking. And for me, I was like, she's just at the beginning of this journey. And so, whatever you want to share about what was happening back then, what emotional state were you in and what brought you to that workshop? And then more importantly, like what got your attention that you wanted to come back and, come to know your unconscious more?
Yeah. So during that time, I was going through a divorce, but I actually think that when we first met, I think I hadn't even filed for divorce. I was just separated. I think
Mm.
I wasn't even sure if that was what's going to happen. And so I was just desperate to find some serenity, to find some guidance, to find just something because I knew the cycle that I was on. It was just so toxic. So when I finally got the power to just like break away and get away from the life that I was living, I knew I needed to just get away. So a lot of people look back and they go, "Why did you leave? Why did you leave the house? Like you should have kept the house for the kids
Mm.
and made him leave or whatever." But I knew that I needed to get out right that day. Cause I like couldn't, I don't know. It's just what I needed.
Yeah.
And looking back, it makes complete sense, but I didn't know at the time. And honestly, if somebody asks me, how did you leave that day? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just did it. It's just like, it was like breathing that day. And I had friends that helped me. But I wasn't sure that it was going to last. The separation, I mean, like I was like leaving, but kind of like one foot still sort of in the doorway. Um, so yeah, it was just a time of just couldn't take my life anymore. So
Yeah.
my family pushed me into therapy. My sister found the studio that I was going to for
Mm.
therapy, and that's where I met you, because she recommended, why don't you take one of these classes? It's called the midlife crisis or whatever. I'm like,
Oh.
am I in midlife already? Like, but who cares? Let's just go. And I went that night, and I'll never forget. Like, we sat around the room, and people shared, why they were there. And I was the youngest one there, but I was 36. So I wasn't, you know, young, but no one's problem really hit the same as me. But I thought, I don't know. Like, I don't know, whatever. It doesn't matter. Like, we're all here because we have something.
Mhm.
And I left feeling the lightest I have ever felt in years. So I was
Mhm.
like, I need more of that. So then I came to the next one or whatever, like I just kind of kept following you and just like, what do you got next? What do you got next? And it turned into coaching, and it turned into this wonderful thing. So that I'm so grateful for. Yeah, that's how it all started. Did I miss a question in there?
No, no, oh my gosh, there's so much. I love it because you really were my very first depth psychology coaching client because I didn't even know that's what I was going to be doing. I was still finishing working
Right.
towards my master's and my PhD. And I was like, what am I going to do with this thing? And it was a synchronicity that I even met, oh, I forget her name, that started that amazing wellness studio where she really was trying to, offer a lot of different modalities for people. So she had traditional therapy, but then she loved that I was a depth, pursuing depth psychology. So she's like, well,
Yeah.
try some workshops. So, uh, yeah, so you and I
I
have a
think,
special relationship. I love the moment. So I love that you keyed in on, the moment where all you knew is you had to get out, and that was your intuition. Really, that was your unconscious because like you said, you were on a hamster wheel, and you had this moment where you finally surrendered to an inner knowing, because the mind wants to, as much as we think we're driven by reason, the mind also wants to protect. So unless the mind thinks that leaving is, going to be less dangerous than staying, right? So that's part of why we don't leave, is that the uncertainty feels more dangerous than staying. And I also love how you talked about the house because, in our conversations, a house is a symbol of our psyche. And so
yeah,
knowing that you just totally had to get out of the house, at the house, like you were living, that was your psyche, this toxic environment. So
yeah,
I love it. And I love your right from the very beginning, you began to come more into relationship with your body, because when you left that first workshop, you're like, all I don't care. All I know is I feel better. I don't care
yeah.
what I don't care
Like,
what I
like
don't care what she's talking about. I feel better. I'm coming back.
you had this handout, and it was adorable. It was like, you're different ways to do this or whatever. I'm like, I'm not reading this, but like, I'm going to keep it for later because maybe later I'll be able to digest it. I could only digest pieces.
And just
And
being there, the experience of being there. And I have to bring up that, we drew, right?
oh my gosh. And
So
I've always liked art, but never pursued it because it was like, I don't know, just maybe not really like offered in my childhood. But I love that time of day in class when we got to do those things. And I always liked the way I felt when I did my own little projects, my own little this and that. I'm like, this was forcing me to draw. Okay, I'll draw. And then that was like, why don't you do more of this? Why don't you journal or whatever? Like, it was just like a reminder
Mhm.
or
And sometimes we avoid because if we allow ourselves to draw what's coming up, that's allowing something other than our mind. And that even can be scary. So some people resist journaling and drawing for mysterious reasons that they're not even really sure, but they intuitively know they're kind of opening up a Pandora's box. So I would say in hindsight, listening to you, that part of why you felt lighter was that through the drawing, you didn't use your mind to understand concepts. Rather, you just said, yeah, I miss drawing and artwork. I'm going to draw. And then what you drew, I don't remember what you drew the first workshop, but at one of the workshops, you drew a dream. Maybe it was during that first one. And there it was. Often I say to my clients, either right before you have an exploratory chat with me or right after a chat, you will often have a dream that's almost a blueprint for what we're going, and neither of us will understand what it means. It'll sort of unfold. But I don't know if you remember the drawing, and there was a river, and I think there maybe was a snake, and there was this crossing of a river. And I was just like, whoa, I hope she comes back because because this is gonna be
yeah.
really great. Like, you opened it up, and that's why you felt lighter.
And yeah, and also I'm just like such a rule follower. Like, okay,
Mm.
so I'm here at this class and this lady says we have to draw something. So let me just do it. Let me just like, cause I have to, cause I'm in this class. So that's what you do when you're a good student and you just do it. And then, but it gave me that space to do it. Like I would never
Mm.
have done that on
Mhm.
my own.
Mhm.
So I needed someone to say, this is what we do now. And okay, I'll try. And then look what came out. It was just like, and then you taught me sort of how to connect. Like, okay, why did I draw this? Why did I draw this thing? And
Mhm.
I know one was just a spiral. Like I just kind of kept spiraling and just like making this
Yep.
shape. I don't even know, but it was just like that's what I felt I was on, or what I don't know. It was, and so the connections were so deep, but that's all I could bring out that day was a spiral.
Right. And I
And
was just
so,
I was just showing viewers my spiral tattoo. So during my midlife unraveling, which coincided with my crazy calling to study depth psychology, I was like, I kept doing this. Oh, and the spiral is a kind of mandala, a circle, and a circle is sort of a symbol of wholeness. And so when we have a desire to draw something in this motion, it is our psyche really trying to pull ourselves together, to rearrange ourselves, to like we feel like we're falling apart. And
yeah.
so, that was really why you were drawn to that symbol. And often people are like, what are you doing? I'm like, death and rebirth every day. Death and rebirth every day. So for me, it was like a way for me to have a sense of humor about, oh my gosh, what's going to die today? Not literally, of course, right? Like
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
part of me needs to die today so a new part can take over. So how would you describe or, describe what's happened to you over the last 4 or 5 years because of this framework, this lens, this depth psychology lens that you have been able to use as a way to explore your life? So I know that's a big question, but whatever comes up for you, just, what, what would describe the process because you're my longest client.
Well, I mean, to start, maybe there always was something like in my childhood that just drew me to this serenity, is all I can describe it as. I don't know. Like I
Mm,
was always trying to go out in the woods. I was always trying to just like be alone and like, because when I was alone, it was quiet and predictable. And my childhood wasn't quiet or predictable. So when I was outside, I was happy, and I don't know, it just, I guess this process brought me back to that feeling. So I was like, oh gosh, I haven't felt
Mm.
that feeling in so long, you know?
Well, and
Um,
remember that last summer when I came back to Milwaukee for a couple of months and we did one of our sessions at the park. I forget which park,
yeah.
Juno Park, I think that was.
Yes. I
And
don't know the name.
we're sitting at the, I hope you don't mind that I'm sharing. It was just
No,
beautiful.
go
We're
ahead.
sitting at the picnic table and we're doing active imagination. So for my listeners and viewers, it's, we just do some breathing, close our eyes, and we allow our imagination to, we might ask our imagination a question or we just see what comes up. And you did suddenly just look so happy and peaceful. And I said, well, where are you? And I think we were doing inner child work. And you're like, I'm in a park or a field or a place that you would go in your childhood to feel like you were free and to get that serenity. And I said, well, let's go there. And you literally got up. And I was like, oh, let's go, man. I thought you were just going to go there in your mind. And you literally got up and went and laid on the grass in the park. And it was,
Yeah.
oh, I think there were some tears. It was such a beautiful
Yeah.
experience. Yeah.
Because even like, even the flowers that were growing, there's like these little like Wisconsin, like wild white little flowers that grow
Hmm.
in the grass. I don't know
Hmm.
what they are, but I guess they're weeds. Um, and that was the same flowers that I was by like being my entire childhood. So it just was so
Mm.
perfect. And it really was a flash to the past. It really just was
Yeah.
something cool. And I first felt embarrassed to even do that, like,
Mhm.
am I really going to go do this right now? But what's to lose? What's to lose? Deb thinks I'm crazy. I'm fine with that. So, yeah. And it was just so enlightening. It felt so good again. And, I think sometimes the things that feel so good, it's just almost hard to put into words why
Mhm.
they just do. I don't
Well,
know.
and that reminds me of the root of knowing or to know is to relate. So if we only understand something with the mind, it's incomplete knowing. So to actually know something of the body that you can't necessarily articulate is a deeper kind of knowing. To not be able to reduce it to language, and you already know, like, English, Americanized English is so reductive. Other languages have like 1,000 different words for like the same thing, and there's these gradations that we tend to not really appreciate here. So that's an experience of an inner knowing, a different kind of knowing that then you could process with your mind later on, but the knowing came to you through the body, through your soul in that moment. So would you say then, because you've certainly, depth psychology has been a drama, it's been a comedy, it's been like, it hasn't been this even experience. Like we've dug into mother complex, and the wedding is kind of a great example that we could talk about. So it's not that our sessions are all like, oh, this is fun. Right. But what you're saying is like the process and maybe the trusting that, your unconscious has this wisdom is leading you is what feels like serene. It's that you feel safe, you can surrender to something. And so that kind of trust in the process maybe is what is the thread, throughout the last 5 years.
Yeah, I think so for sure. Because even, sometimes there'll be times where we're talking, or I know I have a meeting with you or whatever, and I'm like, I don't really know what we're going to talk about. Like, I don't have like a thing that I need to
Hmm.
discuss. And then it just takes like a few minutes of us just kind of like maybe warming up, and then boom, it always comes out.
Well, those are the best sessions if you kind of think about it in hindsight, and with my
Yeah.
clients too, because our mind thinks it knows what we should talk about. And of course, the mind wants to affirm and confirm what it already thinks it knows. And it's a
Yeah.
little afraid of the unknown, but the unknown is sort of where we have to go because that's about where 80, 90% of you actually is. So those are my favorites. When all my clients will laugh at me because I'm laughing at them. They're like, I don't know. I'm like, oh, perfect. Okay. So we're going to allow the unconscious to direct the session, and it might be a dream or it might be a
Yeah.
synchronicity. Or like you said, there's just a way we just start talking about something, but what we choose to talk about is not an accident. That's our
Right.
unconscious's way of bringing something to the surface.
Exactly. And anything that's kind of like lingering in your mind or you're not sure of, like, and also just spitballing with a person, with things that you know, you're not settled with, things that come up for whatever reason.
Mhm.
And I'll say being a parent is a huge thing for me because I don't know how to be a parent. Like, I don't know how to be. So world is changing. Just and I just was never really taught, I feel like there's other ways. There's not just one way. So every time my go-to is like, well, do it the way I was taught. But it's like, no, that didn't feel good. So what else is, like, what are the other options? What are the other ways of thinking, ways of acting, ways of giving examples to my children to be,
Right.
you
And
know?
we've had lots of conversations. What I love about you is like your capacity to just wonder, right? So, you have the humility and the vulnerability to say, well, this is what happened last week with my children. And I'm worried about this and I wonder about this. And so then that leads to a conversation about how we project our own experiences onto our children's experiences. And we make assumptions about what they're feeling and all of that. And so this process also helps you sort through, like, what am I layering on top of their experience, and I'm making assumptions about what their experience is when maybe it's completely different than mine. So I love your openness to that. So, okay. So are there certain sessions we've had that are more memorable than others? And I know I gave this to you in advance, so I don't know what you came up with, but one of my favorites is the one where you had a dream about ferrets, because not only in that session did you have like this mind blowing aha about yourself, the next day when I was walking on the beach, I saw a ferret and I was like, okay, this is not only about Angela. There is something collective going on here. And I took the
Yeah.
picture, right? And then I
Yeah.
said, because the insight had to do with our clinging to the need for a relationship to work and to last, which really makes it impossible for honesty to exist, right? Because we're afraid.
Hmm.
If we're afraid something is going to end, we're less and less honest. And that session helped contribute to this 3 Ps framework I have. And one of the concepts is permanence, that if we let go of the need for something to last, it's actually more likely to last. It's like this paradox. So anyway, that is one of my favorites. How about you? Like, and they can be funny
Well,
or dramatic or whatever.
I feel a little bit the need to touch on that particular session for me too, because I believe it was one of those days where I didn't really know what we were going to talk about, and then that night I had, you know, the dream about the ferret. So I was like, all right,
Do
I
you
got
want to
to talk
just
about this
Yeah, do you want to
crazy
describe what the
dream.
dream was? Yeah.
I'll do the best that I can remember, but I'm like, "Well, I don't even know what she could get from this dream. This dream is just ridiculous, like ferrets and cages and all this, and the funnier part, the layer that's even on top of it was, I think a lot of people look at their dreams and go, well, that doesn't make sense. Like, dreams just never make sense. Like, I might, but the reason that ferrets were even on my mind and how that, like, enter, is that my daughter wanted a ferret, and when she wants something,
Persistent.
she is persistent, she is
Good for
gun-ho
her.
about it. Yeah, I love it about her, but it can get,
Yeah.
whew, you know so I she like made all this list about, how she would take care of a ferret and what we need to have a ferret and why she wants a ferret and how good and it was a little bit like, oh my gosh, okay, this girl won't stop about these ferrets. But so in the past I would have just thought I had a dream about ferrets because my daughter's talking about ferrets, right? Like, so
Right.
it's just ridiculous. Dreams are weird. I don't know how to explain it, right? But then And I wasn't sure. I don't think I had time to come with this my own, but I think as we were talking, it like started piecing together, and your added like kind of guided me into the direction where I'm like, holy crap. This is
Well,
not about getting a ferret.
right. Well, to be honest, like that particular dream, I was like, I don't really know. Let's think about this. There's cages and you're thinking you have to put the ferret back in the cage. And then you go, I don't know why this is coming up, but last weekend, my boyfriend at the time, and it was the first time we were doing this, and there was this moment and I was really mad. And I'm like, well, did you tell him you were mad? And you're like, no. And so then that like, so that was your intuition then pulling
Yeah.
that in. And then like we discovered that and then I said this question. I said, why do you feel like you have to keep shoving this ferret in a cage? Maybe it wants to be free. And then you're like,
Right. And I couldn't get
oh,
the ferret to stay in the cage. Like I just couldn't get it. Yeah. So that was the premise of the dream, was that there were like ferrets in a cage, and then
mhm,
I couldn't get the ferret back in the cage, or what, and I felt like I had to, and I was letting
right.
everybody down if I didn't get it in the cage. And it just it came into me thinking like, okay, what's an event that happened in my life where I felt like I was supposed to do something but couldn't do it,
Mhm,
and what were my reasons for not doing it, and this and that. So uh, I feel like my whole entire life I had to live in a cage, right? You have this much space, and you get to know this much stuff, right? Like you get to know about this. Like there's just so much in the world I never knew existed,
mhm,
information wise. And this is pre-internet days, right? So I mean, there was still a ton of information. It just never was spoken
mhm.
around me, or
Yeah.
did I think I could even ask that question, or suggest something out of the realm of normalcy that was presented. And so yeah, just it was like, okay, you don't always have to do what others want you to do. Like even if they say you're supposed to be in a cage, or like no, like there's other ways of living. You don't have to do this thing. So um it was like a situation that I felt like I couldn't bring up with my boyfriend. And what was the reason that I couldn't bring it up, right? Like, why
Right.
can't I say something I want to say?
Right. Mhm.
And it was the fear of, well, that might end the relationship, right? Like, and I have to have this relationship because this is what I'm working towards. Everybody keeps their relationship. It's longevity that matters, right? And it's not. Like, it's not longevity that matters, even though that's how I always thought of it.
Mhm.
I couldn't think of any, like, if someone says, "Oh, how long have you been married?" or "How long have you been together?" That is zero indication to how happy are you.
Mhm.
Nobody asks you that. Are you guys
Right.
happy? Or like, it's how long you been together, whatever. And I get that it's surface level conversation, but um, it really does kind of hit you, especially as a child. Like if I saw my parents not happy, but man, we're celebrating 20 years of marriage. Like that's the thing we're celebrating. It's like, really?
Right.
This is how it has to be. So yeah, and just being like, what's worth more than staying within these lines and like trying to be the winner or whatever it is for the longest this. How about just like trying to be me? And if the relationship fits me, then it stays together, not me trying to fit this relationship and make this relationship work. So that was just mind blowing. I mean, it sounds probably maybe trivial to some people, but
No, because, we do these things without realizing that. I mean, one of the things that's really beautiful about your post divorce relationship is that, well, number one, you guys were already friends. So we also talked about that it just felt so good because you could trust this person, you knew them, it wasn't risky and dangerous. But then you realized as your relationship went on and it felt like there was more at stake, that then this was that moment that then you wouldn't have recognized it if you wouldn't have had this dream, and we wouldn't have talked about this dream, that this was a very deep, entrenched pattern of
Oh yeah.
responding to events, right? So no, it's not a small thing at all. And then that allowed you then to adjust and approach that kind of situation in your relationship in a totally different way, and in a way that then you were rewarded for even strengthening your relationship. So that's the other thing, is that when there is honesty, first of all, I don't know if you remember this, but one of your ahas was, you know what? If this relationship doesn't last, I'm going to be okay. Like, you said that as if you didn't know that before. That is a
Yeah.
mind blowing realization. And then that contributed to your relationship with Jeff strengthening. Crazy.
100%. Yeah. Like it was like, there is like, this isn't the end all.
Mhm.
So, you know,
I love it.
if
Oh,
if you can just be yourself, why not take
right,
the opportunity to be yourself? And then if that ruined the
right,
relationship, well then perfect,
right,
because then I know I can't be myself.
right. But do you see like how dramatic of a change that was in you? You
It's
know,
huge
yeah.
because it really, really was for me. Like I could go down this path over here, which is the path of silence, which is the path of just assimilate, just do what you got to do so that everybody likes you and there's no problems. You're not telling anybody about problems. You're not making anybody upset, and you're fine. Like I can white knuckle something, right? And
Mhm.
then it almost connects to your ego a little bit. Like, well, darn right, I can white knuckle something. Like, look how strong I am. I'm a strong person. I'm a this person. But inside, you're just never happy. Then you're just. It's kind of like the old story. Like you got to tell a lie to cover a lie, right?
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
now you're like you just did that so many times that you don't even know who you are anymore.
Right.
And that's how you end up in this path of like, I can't do this life anymore.
Yeah.
And because I was able to recognize, which I don't think I would have been able to at all without this kind of talk that we do, to recognize that pattern that I was in, where I was just like, I don't matter. This relationship matters. So I have to keep this marriage no matter what I need to do to keep this marriage. And that was a lot of self sacrifice and a lot of just painful nights. I mean, painful days, painful.
Yeah.
But I was so used to like hiding things and not being able to be myself that it just was like, "No,
Right.
this is just how it is."
Like even your calendar.
Oh my gosh, the
I
calendar.
such a small but mind-blowing aha for you as
You say
well.
small, I say major. I can't believe
No.
you made me do that.
Do you
You
wanna
made me
you
put a
want a quick
calendar up.
you want a quick tell the calendar story?
Sure.
It's just because
Um,
it is major, because I say small, not because it was not huge. Small because this work is finding meaning in these, there are just a million little ways where these patterns that don't work for us anymore and that are holding us back, how they manifest. And if you start with the little one, you don't have to do the big one yet. And I
yeah,
think you needed a little one at the time.
for sure. And yeah, it's hard probably for people to understand this, but for me, as a child, I could never really say what I wanted to do because I had to fit within what I knew my parents were going to allow if I wanted to do XYZ, right? So I learned very, very young that you just say what people want to hear. But in the end, you're doing what you really want, but you never can tell anybody about it and
Mm.
you never can talk about it. And it just makes you feel so limited and nobody really knows you. And it's just not a good feeling. So, yeah, it was during the time I was living with my mom post divorce relationship time period, and so it kind of brings back those like childhood situations, complex. My mom is a very She wants to know what's going on kind of person. And I realized I don't like questions, which is a whole nother topic, like a whole nother thing. But the reason I don't like questions is because I don't want to be judged based on my answers. So now if you ask me a question, now I'm stuck figuring out, do I want to tell you the truth or do I have to lie to you?
Right.
That's a lot for a person.
Yeah.
Like, I'm tired of carrying that balance around. I just want to be able to just tell you and not care if you have a problem with it. I don't care. Like, that's you. I don't, but it was so hard to get there. So simple things of like telling my mom where I was going or what's on the schedule, what's coming up this week. It would really irritate me to have to answer those questions. And I think maybe you suggested like putting up a calendar and like just letting them know where you're going to be. And they could just look at the calendar. And I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean put up a calendar?
You were like going to have a panic attack. You're
Crazy.
like, what? Put my calendar on the fridge so other people can see it
Like, they're
and
going to
judge me?
know yeah. And so I don't know. It's so multi-layered.
Yes.
It's ridiculous. But I was spending so much time worrying about what other people were thinking about what I was doing. How does one live their life if they're always thinking about what other people are thinking about, maybe possibly thinking about what I'm doing? And is that okay with them?
Like going to get yourself a coffee just for you and not having
right.
to bring anybody
Like,
else something.
just because it's your belief that you only deserve coffee when you did something major or whatever, it's not my belief. So it's my belief that like every day, the fact that I'm here today means that I get to have pleasure,
Oh, let's just linger. Let's just linger in that. And so the other reason, everybody, I just love Angela's. This is what our chats are like, that she has such great humility and a sense of humor about herself. And also like this is the coaching part of me. I'm like, come on, girlfriend. Send me a text, send me a picture of that calendar up on the fridge. And it might have taken you
right.
it might have taken you like 4 weeks to do it, but you finally did it. And then you sent me a picture and I was like, yes, yes. And
Yes.
that act was a little act of rebellion and it helped you do something that was bigger than just putting your calendar on the fridge.
And in all out honesty, even that situation, like you know how they always say you need like a buddy to take you to the gym or like somebody
Yeah.
like hold you accountable for that's what I needed, right? I needed someone to hold me accountable for something. But don't think that I didn't consider a fake picture.
Oh, I didn't think about that. I love it.
I could just lie to Deb and then she'll think I did the thing and then I passed the class or whatever, right? Like, yeah. So that's
So
how deep it is. So
that makes it even bigger. So
yeah, because
I'm so proud of you for telling me the truth about that.
do I push myself or do I just tell her I did? Right? Like, then she thinks I did the right thing and I pleased her. And I'm all about pleasing people.
Right.
So that was huge, even on that level, because I'm like, no, you're
this
not
is
doing this anymore, Angela. You're not hiding who you are. You are being you. And you know what? You could probably tell Deb, I can't do it. If you can't do it, then just tell her.
absolutely right.
But it was always that fear. What happens when you don't do something you're supposed to do? Like,
Right.
it must be really bad, but I don't know because I always do everything I'm supposed to do,
Right.
So
I love it. I really appreciate you. I really appreciate this, your honesty and sharing, because I know there are people that are going to be like, yeah, that's exactly how I feel when I do this or when I don't do this or whatever. One of the things that I wanted to you mentioned, I mean, we could have a whole other conversation about the mother wound and what exploring that has really done, and you're kind of touching on it anyway, but I wanted to talk about compassion, because understanding your mother wound or father wound or parental complexes is there's like, I talk about two parts to it. Like, we don't have to demonize our parents, even if they should be demonized. We don't have to demonize them. Like, we can hold these two things. And one is that they're a fallible human being. Maybe they did do the best they could, blah, blah, blah. But if that's all we do, we won't heal because they also hurt us. So we have to like recognize how we got hurt because as a child, you don't have options. You just have to accept, what's in front of you, and you don't even know that what's being done to you is bad and is setting you up for like to have crappy relationships and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, and once you begin to do that though, and by exploring this wound, it helps us have more compassion for ourselves, which then in the end allows us to then have real compassion for the mother. So I just wondered what you think about your experience of developing compassion for yourself and what that's then allowed you to do as you look at the behavior of other people.
Yeah. So just a funny, real quick side story on that. When we were always kind of talking about like, oh, my mom, this or this, because that was kind of really prevalent during my time because I was
Yes.
living with her. And then it came up in one of our interactions about my father. And you're like,
Hmm.
whoa, we've never even talked about your father wound. And I'm just like, yeah, that's a whole nother like cave. So, um, that's to be determined what's going to happen there. But, I think I needed to start smaller anyways in terms of like, well, I could handle talking about this conversation. I love my mother. I feel like I didn't want to, when you talk badly about somebody, like, it's like they're out to be they're this evil person. And I didn't want that, made me feel uncomfortable. I didn't like saying that, because also this person did amazing things for me. So
Right.
I can't
Yeah.
paint them one way and not right. You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It felt uncomfortable. So, but you were able to show me like it, you're not making this person to be a bad person. You're just dealing with what happened to you. And it's like, oh yeah, I deserve that too. I'm not just supposed to protect everybody else. Like I need to protect myself too. And if I need to talk about it, then I need to talk about it. Um, so it's not it's not to belittle somebody or put somebody
Yeah.
in a bad place. It was just like, hey, this is what I need to do to get through something. So I think it's fine, you know.
And then and also then you understand them better. And that's what I mean about the compassion then. So once you understand like what happened to you and that your experience is valid and you suffered because you responded to this experience of people who are supposed to know better in a certain way. But then once you understand where that comes from, you can detach it from that person. Right. So
Yes.
that's when you can kind of, oh, well, but I'm an adult now. I'm not a child. And so I can do this. And then, but only through that feeling through it can you really have compassion in a way that makes sense for the other person, because you have to have compassion for yourself first.
Hmm. For sure. Yeah.
So, how would you say your attitude or perspective about your life has changed? How has this work impacted like how you see your role as a mother or a romantic partner, or even as a daughter of your mother, as a teacher? Like, just generally speaking, how has either this process of coming into deeper relationship with yourself changed your perspective and attitude about life, or even how the depth psychology approach itself, going forward, like each day, like, whoa, I look at things in a way that I didn't really look at before. And because of that, this is how I bring meaning, how I assign meaning to things that happen in my life.
Yeah. I guess what comes up for me right now in that instant, I didn't really know how I was going to answer this question. So I'm glad it's
Oh,
just
good.
coming to me.
Yes.
Yeah. The word is control. And it's like fighting for control every day and then finally realizing like, nope, don't gotta do that.
Ooh. Oh, coffee mug. Don't gotta do
Yeah.
that. Nope, don't gotta do
Don't
that.
don't gotta do that. You don't gotta do that. Why do you think you have to do that, Angela? Like, but that's how it was for me, right? So as far as a child, like you have to be in control of your children. And if you're not, you're failing. You have to be in
Mm,
control of
mm,
even my students. Like all my teachers had control. Like nobody acted out. Nobody did in my class. Wait, you can't do that. Like what? I don't have control. And when you're finally like, yeah, you don't have control and you
mm,
don't have to, then it's just like you can be a whole different person. So in a love relationship, in a parent relationship, in a teacher, in a my relationship with my mom, like I don't have control over what anybody is doing. In fact, Angela, you need to take control of your own life
mm.
because you're so busy worried about everybody else. And because I was worried about everybody else, I just thought everybody else was all worried about me too, you
Mm.
know? And so um yeah, that's one of the major ways I would say that I changed
Well,
is
in order to actually do that, you have to be in deeper relationship with this part of yourself, the capital S, we call it, this like part of you that knows more about you, that is guiding you, that is in charge of your blueprint. And what comes up for me is like surrendering to the mystery of life.
Mhm.
It's that same thing about clinging to permanence, clinging that this works out or clinging that. And I mean, whoa, if you're walking around like literally like, okay, I got to be on top of that. I got to be on top of that. You're really not surrendering to the flow of life and the mysteries of life.
And every time that I have surrendered to the flow, it's worked out.
Right. You
Like,
get rewarded, don't you?
what am I over here trying to be a puppeteer when I could just be like, okay, you know what your place is right now? Your place is to say something. They do need to hear something. Let's say it's a children thing or a
Mhm.
relationship thing. Like my job is to say something. Maybe it's how I'm feeling or give advice or to just understand or whatever, right? Like that might be my job at that moment.
Mhm.
But then that's it. Then that's it. I don't have to say, and if you don't do it, this is what's going to happen. And if you don't do it, this is what's going to happen. And like really like white knuckling it to just make sure this person does what I want them to do. And it's just never ever worked out that way.
Well,
It's just that
and
always caused more pain and hugely with my ex because I just thought if I was a better wife, if I was a better mother, if I was a better provider, like he won't do these things.
mm,
That's not true.
you're not responsible for that. And the other
Yeah.
thing about parenting is that um when we impose on our children, like you said, your role is to guide, it's to say things, it's to have conversations, it's to be a teacher, a disciple,
Or
right,
be a model. Yeah.
a leader, a witness, a role model. But we're not responsible for what then happens, because when we feel responsible then for their behavior, then that's how we're judging our self-worth, is by their behavior. That's not their burden to carry. And then also they don't have a choice. We want them to choose the behavior that we want them to grow into. We want them to make mistakes, but when we don't allow for their own growth, they're not even building the capacity to actually choose on their
Hmm.
behalf. Instead, they're turning around trying to make you happy,
Yeah.
which is the opposite of what you want to do with your kids.
Yeah. And I think, you know what, it's even just seated in so many other things in the world, right? So, like religion, brought up Catholic, like Jesus died for our sins. So now we owe him everything. Like
Mm,
we owe him every single thing. What would Jesus do? You have to always think that way. And if you don't, you're shamed because you did something seeking pleasure instead of seeking whatever you were supposed to do that somebody told you that like it was just like all of those. It's like started there for me and then just parental
yeah.
situation, like how it was just like you have to, you just, I don't know, it was always you could not go outside the lines. This is this is how we do it. This is how you do it. And if you do it this way, then everybody feels comfortable.
Right. Oh,
But
and
everybody's like a whole lot of unhappy, but we're all
right.
comfortable with that.
And you know that finding truth for yourself is for brave people. So you can't rely on other people's approval of your seeking your own truth, because then you probably won't find your own truth.
Yeah, and that's what I always did. So when I did something good, people gave me praise, or if I did something somebody liked, then they were happy. The house was calm, or whatever the situation was. So here I am just dancing around trying to do what everybody wants me to do. And I spend my whole life like just like, what would I be doing right now if I got to choose what I wanted to do? That's mind blowing. Like, and as a mother, it's kind of a harder situation because there are some things there that I
Yeah.
mean, but I mean, a funny story, like I was getting a root canal the other day, and the doctor sort of made a joke. He's like, "What do you got going on this weekend?" I'm like, "Well, it's baseball weekend, you know." He's like, "Well, would you rather go through this or have to watch baseball all weekend?" I'm like, "Well, 100% baseball." Like, it, what are you talking about? You
Yeah.
know what
What
I'm
a
saying?
weird question, actually.
He kind of said like, well, this is only, an hour of pain or whatever. Then I'm like, but it's not painful for me to watch baseball. Like I love watching baseball. That's fun for me. So, just being with my kids or watching them do anything they enjoy, I
Yeah.
love to do that. But in the same respect, I was never shown that it's okay to take care of yourself too. Um, it was like always a martyr, always suffering, because you get praised when you do that. Like, I can't believe you do all the things that you can do. And it's like, could somebody help me? Like you see that I do a lot of things. So if you really cared, you would offer assistance if you could. Or if not, fine. But like all you're doing is telling me that you're amazed at how stressed out and unhappy I am, because I'm stressed out and unhappy. Like, so being aware of those words like people would use taught me a lot about other people too, and just like
Yes.
um what they're able to see and understand as well, and just being more aware. I want to set the example for my children that I go out to dinner with friends. I go out and do things that I enjoy that you don't come along with sometimes, right? So um I'm going to a concert or whatever. I mean, just yeah, we're going to do a lot of fun things as a family. I for sure need to teach you about the ways of coolness, right? Like this is how we have summer, this is how we whatever. And it's so fun, but it's also I need to go to the gym. I need to but when I first started going to the gym, all I could think about was how fast I could get done with my workout
Mm,
so that I can go home and like be where I'm supposed to be. And
right.
it's like this workout's not even fun because I am like annoyed at myself for it taking long, or and it's just like, okay, how about you just calm down and you have this time right here to work out and enjoy that you're doing something good for yourself, you know just that, again, back to the pleasure seeking thing. It was like, if I am doing something for myself, I need to make it move along quickly, and therefore you're never enjoying it.
Right.
You're never enjoying it.
I love how you've really been intuitively just presenting this. Here are the negative patterns that I was able to see and develop, and then I was able to question my motivation for why I did what I did, and here's how I broke out of it. And so I think you've given people like a really, like, first of all, thank you for just sharing such really vulnerable stuff. But because everything that you're describing, a lot of people feel, and aren't where you are, where after 5 years you're able to be like, yep, that's what I used to do and be, and I was trapped in it. Now I can talk about it because that's not me, and look, like, I have a sense of humor about it. So, okay, so my best clients are those that are referred by other clients. I actually have sisters. I have two sets of sisters that see me separately. They're separate clients, but they're like sisters and friends. And in fact, one of them is like a fellow teacher. And so what would you say to my listeners and viewers? How would you describe what it's like to work with me?
Um, so it's that's hard to put into words, but I did explain you to a few people, so I will try to just go off of what I said.
Yeah.
Maybe um yeah, if your life is a mess, Deb can help you.
Oh, what a great tagline.
um yeah, I just again, I have no idea. This how I got led to you was in my eyes uncontrollable. It just happened
This
and
is
it's
a
one of the
synchronicity. Yeah.
best things that's happened. So it's like living in that flow. So if somebody says things to me, maybe having trouble or just feeling, I think when I first recommended my friend, it was during COVID times. And it was just like she felt she had all these things going on, but she couldn't get an appointment with the therapist. Like they were booked out. And it's like, well, yeah. And even if you get an appointment, how do you know you're going to like the person? Like, how, like, it was, I'm like, I have this person I talk to. It always feels great when I talk to her. I don't know if she could help you, but like, try it. Just try it and see, and
Are
it's
you
hard to explain what depth psychology is to somebody, but it's that unknown, knowing there's something that you don't know, like, and you're trying to find it.
right? And then
Um,
this language is different than the mind. So the dreams, and I used to love how you one time you're like, yeah, my mom is like, where are you going? What are you doing? You're like, it's dub time. And you would
mhm.
be like, this is like my monthly dub time is like
Right. And she probably had no idea what that meant for me. She just probably thought it
right.
was therapy or whatever, like this women's group that I'm a part of, whatever. Um, so she just in her mind, okay, yes, that's something she needs to do. I mean, even when when I first left my ex, the only support that I knew to go to was Al-Anon. Like I just didn't know what else do you do? And then these people and that felt good for a while, but I knew I kind of grew out of that a little bit. I needed something more. I needed to work on myself.
Mhm.
And so this was working on myself and this felt good.
Yeah.
So even I don't know, there's just so many little things that you can talk about, whether it's a dream or a childhood situation or a habit that you don't want to continue doing and you don't know why you do it, where it came from. Like, and then just all the good advice that you give. Like, okay, that's not my job to hold that for somebody. Sometimes you just need to hear it. And sometimes you just need someone to tell you.
Mhm.
Um, I'll never forget at one point in my life, back when I totally didn't even need to do this, I thought I needed Weight Watchers. And I was doing Weight Watchers and I'm going to these meetings and I'm being very careful. Like I'm a rule follower. So yeah, I gotta do like, and then some ladies, I heard them over talking to themselves before the meeting started. And it was like how they didn't write stuff down that they ate just so their book didn't look bad. Like they just didn't write it down. And I was like, how do you not write? Like somebody's gonna come down and get you. Like I don't know who, but how did you just break that rule? But once I heard that they broke that rule, then it was like, well, you know what? I'm gonna do that too. And then it doesn't work anymore. Like it just you have to do things not because there's a rule out there. You have to do things because it feels right for you. It's good to you. Like it's what you need. I I don't
That's
know.
fa-
It's just
no, that's good. That's fantastic. Is there anything? Yeah, no, you touched on a lot of things. And I think that one thing people have always said about me, even before I was just in general doing this kind of work at all, is I remember just I love having meaningful conversations with people. So even with my nonprofit clients, I'd be meeting with a board member and we'd be talking about dreams, really. And at the end, somebody would say, I just feel better. And I
Mhm.
love when you say that because I have this framework and expertise in the study of the unconscious, and we talk about dreams, we do active imagination, but like the best is when someone says, I don't know what just happened, but I feel better. And I know that I'm going to do this different. I'm going to try this.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, you get rewarded. You're always
Mhm.
rewarded for moving in closer relationship with yourself. So
For sure.
any last thing that you would like to add?
I guess
Or
I just maybe want to say that, um, like, we're lucky and privileged to be able to have these kind of conversations. I think, I mean, I get to
Mhm.
take some time to talk. Like, I don't know. In the past, I would have to be worth it for me, right? Like, worth this time away doing from whatever it is I'm supposed to be doing, right? Like, I'm supposed to be cleaning my bathroom or whatever. Like, but no, no, you don't need to. Like, you need to take this time to have conversation with people that you trust, that you
Mhm.
don't feel judged by, that you can, it's like going out with good girlfriends. Like,
Mhm.
when you can talk about just life and no one's judging you. Maybe they're offering some suggestions, but just versus friends that you go out with and you're like, you got to keep the conversation sort of surface level because
Yeah.
either they're not going to get it, or you don't agree on things, or but you kind of still hold on to this friendship for whatever reason. When you compare those two situations, 100% you're going to want to go out and do the fun date with your girlfriends that you can be you with, right? Versus, oh, I gotta go do this, or I gotta
Mhm.
put in my time. I don't know. It's just it coming to that realization of doing things that feel good and doing things that are better for you. Like, 100% journaling and talking to people about your life, any situation. Once you talk it out, it's way better than if you just keep it in,
True.
you
Oh,
know?
wonderful.
So I try to do that with my students as well, like give them the space to be able to talk about things, because we expect them to like just come to school, and then we have reading, and then we have math, and then we do the gut. It's like, yeah, but these kids don't have the opportunity to maybe like talk about what happened last night, or something. Maybe they have a situation that they can't get out of their mind. How are they going to learn? If
Well,
you could just
right.
talk to them, talk to them
Yeah.
about it. And when you start asking more questions, they're like, well, no one's really asked me that before. Or when they say, I don't know why I did something. Well, I'm gonna let you think about it. Come back and let me know why you did it later. Because you don't know why right now, but why don't you think about why you did it a little bit? And then you
Mm.
might learn something from yourself and not do it again. Or
That's that's beautiful. Everybody
yeah.
needs more of that. So, this has been great. It is. So, I wanna thank you so much for our conversation, which was definitely full of depth and it was full of vulnerability and also, the capacity to have a sense of humor about ourselves and our journey and just how you've changed. And, if we take ourselves too seriously, we do suffer more than we need to. So,
That's right.
so I thank you for being on Dose of Depth podcast.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Angela, one of my awesome clients who has the courage to come into deeper relationship with her unconscious and surrender to where it wants to take her, which eventually is to a place and purpose that serves the collective of humanity. The theme of our chat was kind of midlife, and I'm going to put a bunch of links to my blog posts and podcast episodes that relate to midlife unraveling and reconstruction. Until next time.